Higher order academic career coaching is all about clarifying your career identity. So, really working on making sure that you understand why it is that certain kinds of work matter to you more than other kinds of work. And we don't just mean job titles. Specifically, what kind of projects are going to matter? What kinds of environments should you be working in? Around what kinds of people? Solving what kinds of problems or answering what kinds of questions? Are you more drawn to teaching or are you more drawn to research? Sure, that's a classic divide. But there's a lot of facets in which we can explore. But the idea is that it takes some inner work, looking at parts of our past, life narratives. That's key in career construction theory, which I draw from extensively at this level, the higher order level of clarifying your career identity. But over and over again, the goal is to understand what kinds of work will be the long-term most meaningful to you. There's sort of that old saying, you should measure twice and cut once. You don't get awards for just having the most publications, right? It matters which publications, or the most grant money. It's which grants for which projects that matter the most. Lots of people are drawn into projects they don't really care about. And it's not to say they're bad projects, but at the end of the day, if they had had a clearer sense of what they were building over time, think not just 1 year, or even 5, but like 10 years. What is it that you're building toward? What do you want to look back on? And that is going to have to come from, to have that kind of longer term vision, it's going to have to come from a place of awareness of who you are. Right. So there are some people who job switch, project switch all the time, and it's because they have lots of interests, right? But so does everybody. We all have lots of interests. But when you want to build a significant body of work, you have to be able to commit to something. And just like we all have lots of interests, no matter what you commit to, there are going to be days that are more tedious, more rigorous, less fun. Maybe there's just a lot going on in life, and it's hard to stay energized or focused on the task. But ultimately, if you have a strong sense of why you're doing what you're doing, not just how to do it, but why you're doing it, well, then that has its own kind of pull. And so on those days that are feel a little more, maybe like drudgery than excitement, you have that reservoir of meaning. Like, okay, I know why I'm doing this, and you keep chipping away. And then, of course, ultimately, hopefully, and this is largely also a bit what academic career coaching is for. Hopefully most days don't feel like drudgery. You're able to craft a kind of workflow and work-life situation where you're using a lot more positive energy or flow to help you move towards those goals. And lastly, I would just say this idea of committing to a time horizon is important. I mean, yes, you can hire an academic career coach just for lower order projects, which we'll talk about, just getting through one deadline or past one milestone that's holding you back. But in the bigger picture, it is helpful to, start at this higher order level. Might only be for a couple sessions, just to kind of get started at clarifying some things, and then, maybe come back to it later. But it's because it takes time to build a significant body of work. And, there are some who think that, we have very fixed personality traits, and if you fill out the right assessment, you'll be matched with a job. And once you attain that job, then, you're kind of set for life and knowing what you want to do. And in reality, that's not how careers work at all. And some of the more recent research is also suggesting that's just not simply true, right? There's sort of like the idea of a soulmate or something in romantic relationships, this idea that, there's a parallel in the career life, that if you just find that one job title, you're set for life. And I think that when people think that way, sometimes when they actually achieve that goal, they start waking up, once the honeymoon period's over, and wonder how they got where they are and why they're still not satisfied. There's a whole literature around tenure track people who, have a kind of postpartum malaise, if you will. They'd worked so hard to get tenure, and then they're like, well, now what, right? So let's make sure that doesn't happen to you. We'll clarify that career identity, and that will give you a longer time horizon and some direction and vision that you can then build a body of work towards.